How disappointing was that performance today?
Yeah, it's very disappointing. Started the game very well. Probably wasn't as efficient as what we needed to be. Clearly had lots of shots on goal. So felt like we set up the game okay. Probably would have liked a little bit more speed on it early. So I wasn't sure whether that was something necessarily planned or we were just defending really well that they were able to stop North. They went end to end a couple of times. So, but then the second quarter, the thing that's been our strength, was really taking offers really, and even with it taking offers, we've been good enough to be able to defend the ground better than what we did. So what they kick in the second quarter, 5-6 goals. So we just couldn't turn it off for that period of time, and tried a few different things, but ultimately we almost couldn't get the ball back. They outnumbered us a lot at the next contest, and they hit the scoreboard a little easier than what we would like. So that quarter was just extremely disappointing. You finish off the game the way that we did. You can't help but think if we made that quarter a little bit different, does the game look different? But the reality is sort of we're playing the scoreboard in the end, and we had to chase too much down.
What went wrong in that second quarter? I mean, the numbers minus 13 contested ball. Is that on your leaders?
It would be something you'd have to go back and review heavily if you wanted to get an absolute accurate assessment of the individuals involved. But largely we're 8-9 down in clearances. We're down inside 50s. That tends to happen when you're losing the territory battle. But you also like to be in a position where you can absorb for longer than what we did. But the gap between our best and worst right now is too big. And it's pointless me sitting here saying, there's patches of our game that gives a real insight into the way we want to play. But the reality is when you don't have things your way, you've still got to find ways to be able to how to generate that or shut the game down for periods of time. And we've done it for small periods throughout the season, but today, North Melbourne were too good, and they were much too good around the contest for us. And, across the game, I felt like for a middle two patch there, they probably bullied us. So that's something we're going to have to go back and look at pretty closely.
Cameron's caught you pretty animated at three-quarter time. Was that to the whole group or just the midfield group?
I was disappointed in the whole team. That's not acceptable, the way that we played through that period of time, and I felt like there were some really fundamental things that we want to value that we didn't get right, and it just didn't sit at mids. It's obviously the game starts and finishes there, but it just sort of felt like we just weren't sticking to what we want to value even under pressure, and that's something we'll go look at and review really heavily.
Did it make it even more disappointing, given there was so much on the line in terms of top 8 part of things? A win would have really got you back in the mix. Did that make it even more disappointing, the performance you put up with that?
Yeah, we've been in the fight, and we sort of feel like it's been, we've sort of been fighting away and trying to find our way back into the competition, if you want to call it that. And so these moments certainly don't help. But what I will say is that that fight's on. We see out the season really strongly. We'll still take all our challenges. That won't change. But as a competitor, you can't help but you look at that game, be extremely disappointed with it, find out ways of what we need to reinforce, and then we turn up again in a very short period of time and we move forward to Port Adelaide. Because there is capacity there, but it's not there for long enough. So we'll keep reinforcing that.
Michael, from the coaching perspective, the way that the game unfolded, it felt like you went very defensive in terms of your lateral kicking. You weren't really taking the game on, and that ball speed, like we've seen over the past few weeks, particularly with the flying start that you got off to last week, that just wasn't quite there, and that therefore couldn't generate into forward entries.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit of the. We'll have to go into the why of that to understand it, because it's. You sort of look at the numbers at the end. They're still healthy enough to generate opportunities to get the right score, but the reality is we didn't. Just didn't feel like we put enough speed on the game when we needed to, and be conservative in some passages of play where we could have been a bit braver. That hasn't necessarily been a trend for us this year. We've been quite brave when we've needed to. We've put great speed on when we've needed to, and for some reason, we just weren't able to play with that speed. And last quarter, you throw a bit of caution to the wind and start to get the ball going a little bit better, and you can sort of see how that energises the team.
Toby did a great job on Charlie today, but then Mitch McGovern stood up and kicked 4 goals, so that was a positive spin on the performance.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of change forward of the ball, and we need to try and build out that cohesion. I in some ways I felt like the supply though wasn't great quality today, so a bit hard to measure everyone's impact forward of the ball. I just didn't feel like we necessarily set it up as well as what we could have. So I'll go back and look at that and what that needs to look like. But my initial feel was we just don't think we gave ourselves a chance.
The team got quite a few boos throughout the game from a very passionate supporter base, obviously. But are you sort of concerned that you might get a bit of a drop off in terms of support as the year goes on with this?
We're a well-supported football club. And one of the things we've built this off is to ensure our connection stays strong. And it's not time to isolate; it's time to come together. And that would be true now, and it's true in the future. And we'll continue to reinforce that. So we love coming to the ground and having the supporter base we have and the passion that our supporters have. But we share in their disappointment. So no hiding from that.
You spoke before about how you felt North Melbourne bullied you, and the gap between your best and your worst is too far. I mean, you're 4 seasons in. Do you feel like the team should be further advanced than where they are now?
I'd like us, in terms of the way that we play, to be further ahead than where we are, and the consistency of how we need to be able to play. That's what I'd like us for able to do. So it's not so much about the result of the game. It's certainly how we play and how long we play it for, and that's something that we're going to continue to reinforce.
Do you feel like the next 10 weeks of the season that you're coaching for your future?
I think it's more about staying present to where we're at, and we've got 5 days where we're turning into Port Adelaide. The competitor in me is about getting better tomorrow, and that's we absorb, be disappointed, and then you turn into tomorrow and you look at what you need to get better at, and then you get after the next opponent. That's all you ever do as a competitor, and that's what we'll do. So we'll move on from this one pretty quickly because we have to. We have to sort of address the things that need to be able to, we need to look at, and then we've got to move forward really quickly, and that's one's into Port Adelaide. So my sight doesn't go any further than that.
Was you hard in your mouth a bit when Jacob Wiedering went off the field like that?
Yeah, it was. Because my first reaction was it was pretty significant injury. So I'm pleased that it's a rolled ankle rather than anything else. So, I was going in all sorts of places. So, thinking Achilles, I'm thinking knee. It wasn't good. So, thankfully, he got up. He was able to play out the rest of the game. Obviously, we'll have to wait to see how he pulls up to see what he's like this week.
Just following on from the previous question, obviously with the new CEO coming in, does that sort of add to the, I guess, urgency, or you relish the pressure that might come with that in terms of the future?
No, I don't think. I mean, I look at it and go, all that's ever been here with our leadership has been tremendous support. We're a really lucky football club that we've got 2 guys that are leaders of our club and been very experienced leaders of our club, and so fortunate being able to have a lot of communication with both over the last period of time, and our alignment about what we need to be able to do. We've got work to do, and right now though, sort of what that looks like at the end of the season, I'm turning about what turns up Monday, and how do we need to be able to get after it, bridge the gap between the best and the worst, and we take on Port Adelaide. I don't need anyone else to be in any other space other than that.
And just outside of Jacob, I think Hollins and Cherry had a few little knocks. Is there anything else to report?
I think they're okay. I mean, they played out the game. I mean, we'll assess everything, of course, but early indications, I think everyone's okay.
Cheers. Thank you.